Thank you for listening to this training audio. This recording is by members of the youth team and guest Ben Cutting, the digital evangelist at Youth for Christ. Ben kindly shares some of his journey, things he has learnt through his time running intro-outro, and offers encouragement and wisdom for those starting out doing online evangelism and youth work. We hope Ben's words help to inform, guide and encourage you in seeking new ways to reach and disciple young people.
Hey everybody, welcome to this little video. I'm Andy, this is Ben. We're from the youth team at Blackburn Diocese. We're just going to hang out with a youth leader who is also an evangelist called Ben. He's from Youth for Christ, and he's just going to teach us and give us a bit of encouragement and some tips about how to engage and reach young people online.
Just before we kind of get into the nitty-gritties of youth work, evangelism online, all that jazz, do you have any pets? What are your hobbies? Do you support a football team? I know you do.
I don't have any pets. We were never allowed pets growing up, purely from the fear of heartbreak when they inevitably passed away. But I did have a goldfish once called Jelly, and it's now buried in the back garden somewhere. That sounds awfully morbid, but it's not alive. It passed away. It wasn't a punishment. So no pets. I love football, so it is a tough time for me being no football on at the moment. I'm an Arsenal fan, huge Arsenal fan, and also very, very passionate about all things England and international.
Cool, brilliant. Just tell us a bit more detail about kind of how you're reaching young people online, maybe like what tools you're using. Tell us a bit about how you got into it if you want, and just kind of gives a bit of a picture of what it looks like.
Yeah, great. So my brother is a full-time YouTuber. About 4 years ago at Soul Survivor, he was with his youth group and I was with mine, and two lads had an opportunity to respond to the gospel, and right in that moment they recognized Dan from YouTube, and so they asked for a selfie, and something within me was stirred, and I was like, and Dan was very good. He said, "Oh no, come, we'll have one later. This is not the right time." And something stirred within me that I didn't know whether those two young lads were Christians or not, but they missed out on an opportunity to meet with their Saviour because they saw somebody who they admire from YouTube. And so something changed within me, and I thought, how on earth do we do what Dan has done really well, create high quality content that's incredibly engaging for young people, that creates a platform where you're able to not push them towards yourself, but push them towards Christ. And so something was stirred in me. I was a youth worker in Jersey, in the Channel Islands at the time. So I set up a YouTube channel for the young people in Jersey, and it did really well island wide. It didn't go viral, but it was just a fun thing that young people started to share with their friends, because we made it as accessible as possible. And we should do weekly videos. And then I saw a job at Youth for Christ, and Youth for Christ were having their own parallel journey to me, where they did a big bit of research that said young people are spending less time in churches and more time online. And then they did a second big bit of research that said exactly what they were spending, time-wise, online. And then off the back of that, they set out to employ somebody. And that somebody was me. The channel is called Intro Outro. It was started when I started at Youth for Christ. It was created because we want to introduce young people to Jesus and encourage them to live it out. And we've effectively tried to do that through creative means. So some examples is we speak about fear, and instead of just me talking to the camera for 10 minutes, 5 minutes on fear, I went and held a giant reticulated python because I'm terrified of snakes, and we spoke about how fear has an effect and it stops us from doing what we're doing, and then how, if Jesus promises life in all its fullness, what does that look like when we tackle fear? We speak about anxiety, and I went on the world's fastest roller coaster in Abu Dhabi. So we try and basically think of really creative ways to engage young people. They're not obviously all big budgeted ones like the Abu Dhabi roller coaster. Others examples, we did one on trust, and my mate is a tennis player and a coach. And so I put a Pringles can on my head and got him to serve tennis balls at my head. And we spoke about how when you put your trust in your friends, they will let you down. They don't necessarily mean to. He wasn't aiming. I like to think he wasn't aiming for me, but he still hit me and still hurt.
Yeah.
And so there's one relationship that will never let us down. And what does that look like for us to put our trust in Jesus? So yeah, we try and think of creative ways that engage young people, that make it really accessible for them to share with their friends.
That sounds incredible. And I have to admit, I've kind of been watching your journey over the last sort of, kind of caught on probably a little late, but over the last sort of 6 months, and that's been really exciting, especially watching the Abu Dhabi stuff and inflatable football and stuff. Anyway, that was exciting. If you were kind of putting a kind of advising head on a little bit and hat on, is sort of saying, like, if someone was to came to you and said, I want to start out, I want to do this, what would those kind of initial bits of advice that you give them to help them sort of start that journey?
I think for me, the key is that the world of YouTube and social media is a little bit like dieting. And by that, I mean, you can cut corners and sometimes see instant results. You know, you can put up a good video that you put a lot of time into and get a good thumbnail and just in terms of YouTube stuff, or you create something that nobody else is doing for Instagram and TikTok and stuff like that. But I think the reality of it is that it's small, it's consistent, and that's the stuff that leads to long-term goals. Whatever goals is, whatever success looks like for you. I think I am never, like, I have to tell myself this every day, I never get caught up in a numbers game. Youth for Christ have targets. Youth for Christ have what they expect and hope that the work that I do creates. But as an individual, my role as a minister of God's word to young people, my role is to present the gospel faithfully, and God can use it in his goodness and his faithfulness. And I think so. I never get caught up in the numbers. You know, we get a video that does 1,000 views in a month, and I'm like, this is brilliant. And then the next video does 110 views. And I think if you set out in video in numbers, then it hurts your own heart a lot, and it hurts your pride. And I think there has to be a stage where we step back and say, this has to be less about my agenda and what I want from this, and it has to be more about God's kingdom and what he can use it for. And so I think if anybody's starting out, and we've seen, you know, a lot of youth groups picking up Instagram for the first time and just starting out. And I think the key is to be consistent in any level you can. If you can post once a week, then post once a week. Don't get caught up in what other people are doing. Don't compare yourselves to the big churches like Elevation and Hillsong and the people that are creating unbelievable, you know, videos and content for young people, which is phenomenal, and we need to celebrate that. But yeah, I think there's something really key that we stay in our own lane and focus on, right, what is my task here? My task is to present the gospel faithfully, and God can use it to open blind eyes, and that's our hope and our prayer every single time we upload a video. So
that's really you kind of your heart's kind of it's about interaction, isn't it? At the end of the day, we can't all launch a YouTube channel with 100,000 followers, can we? And I guess that kind of leads us on to think about maybe if you could encourage kind of maybe a youth worker, a youth leader, maybe paid, maybe not, in their local setting, and thinking, you know, we want to kind of go online. It's where young people spend the time, particularly during this kind of social distancing time that we're in.
Yeah.
Have you kind of got some encouragements to help them think, you know, that they're not maybe kind of after growing a channel exponentially, but they want to connect and they want to facilitate and grow their group?
I think my biggest encouragement is, and I tried to do this when I worked for 10 years as a local youth worker in various churches around the UK, and we had Instagram accounts and various stuff like that. And I think the key for us was just to be the truth that the young people need. Yeah. I think the world of social media and YouTube and other stuff like that is where the world goes to get its truth, whether they see it as you know, the truth that we have in Christ, which is absolutely 100% true. They are getting their truths from, you know, comparison, from what the male or female body should look like, how we're supposed to have our hair, like that's the truth that they get every single day from social media and things like that. And we have to be a voice outside of the youth group, outside of the once a week, twice a week that we might see them on a Wednesday and a Sunday or various other places. I think it's so important that we are a voice into that. And so we're sharing good truths from obviously biblical basis, but actually just encourages them. And sometimes it will be as simple as, I'm just going to post a nice verse. I'm just going to post, I'm not a paid youth worker. And so the only capacity that I've got is to create a post once a week, or I might ask somebody in the youth group to create it, or, and then we're going to post that as an encouragement so young people can see the truth. And the difference is that's where we have to hold on to the goodness and the faithfulness of God, that he can use whatever we produce. For me, that area of just continually, if a young person from 11 to 18, they have one bit of truth once a week through Instagram, and that's your post, God can use that to shape their future.
Yeah.
At any point, use it to open blind eyes and to do something phenomenal. But it's up to him, and so we just have to be the ones to present it.
Do you have any tools, tips, resources that you use, maybe like really practically, that you can suggest to people if they want to start out, or maybe they've started out but thinking this doesn't look as great as I'd like it to?
I think for us, we are actively involved in YouTube. So we watch videos. We've got people who are watching videos. I spend a lot of time watching YouTube videos because that's the space that I'm in. And so I want to see what the trends are doing. I want to see what challenge videos are out there. Maybe if you're starting out, don't speak specifically about COVID-19, speak about a general fear and anxiety, so that if you upload a video to YouTube in 10 years' time, when a young person is going through a YouTube rabbit hole and your video comes up on how to deal with fear and anxiety, the truth of the gospel still has a chance in that moment. Though culture's moved on and you might look different, or you might be wearing clothes that you regret, like when culture moves on, the truths of the gospel still stand. We simply ask the question every time we think of a video idea. My very next question is, how do we add magic? And not literal magic, although that would be incredible, but like more so in a sense of, if I can do this on my own, if I can talk at a camera for 20 minutes and keep people engaged, then that's brilliant. But what is it to bring somebody else on there? If I'm going to do an Instagram live, what would it look like for me to bring somebody else into that Instagram live? What would it look like for me to add some magic to this video? The same questions we asked. We want to do a video on trust. What would it look like to bring somebody else in? Let's bring the tennis guy in, and he can serve tennis balls at a Pringles can on my head. That adds the magic that we want to create to videos. And then the final thing I think for us is we make it as accessible as possible. So if a young person is watching it, we don't want them to feel awkward. We don't want them to feel, and sometimes we get it wrong, of course we do, but we don't want them to feel, oh, this is awkward, this is cheesy, this is, oh, what happened there? Why are the two people on camera arguing with each other? That was levels of banter that I'm not sure I can appreciate, because I don't know if they know each other very well. So at every step, we try and make it as accessible as possible, so that when young people watch it, they're filled with the same emotions they feel watching one of their YouTube sensations, and it becomes a natural, easy share off the back of it. So they watch a video and they think, wow, this has really helped bring me perspective on anxiety. Or, we did a series in October last year, big questions, and we asked, how does a good God allow suffering? Where is Christianity all about rules? Why do Christians go to church? Like all those questions, and we made them accessible so that once a young person in the church has watched them, it's peer-to-peer evangelism. They can say, hey, do you remember when you asked me this question last week? Or do you remember when we had this conversation about, is Christianity all about rules in philosophy and ethics? Here's a video which I think in 2 minutes can really help sum this up for us.
Brilliant. So we've got a couple of minutes left, Ben. I guess really to just say we're going to try and share this as far as we can to the youth leaders, workers across our diocese. So the floor is yours. go for it, and just encourage them to maybe just go for it and have a go and just do something creative to get the word out.
I think my biggest encouragement is that what you're already doing is phenomenal. Like, I think that the work that you do week in, week out, whether you're paid full time, whether you're part time, whether you're voluntary, the work that you're doing is already incredible. And I think sometimes you need to take a step back and look at it and go, cool, yeah, like this is really good. Like, what we're doing is, it might be small, it might be basic, but you are reaching, even if one young person hears every week the good news of Jesus consistently in their lives and in their hearts, the effect that will have long term on that young person is phenomenal.
Cool, great. And I guess just to say, like, you don't need all expensive equipment. Like, just pick up your phone, point and shoot, and get going, edit it. We'll put loads of links in the description, on our blog as well, just for some tools. There's loads of free stuff out there to just help you get going. And so, yeah, we hope this is helpful. Go for it. Let's spread the good news. Let's reach some young people. And thank you for watching.
We hope that you've enjoyed listening to this talk. For more resources and training, please visit the resource area at bdeducation.org.uk.